Welcome to this webinar on content accessibility, key accessibility considerations for developers. We're going to be covering the following success criteria. Link purpose in context, so how important it is that links use sensible text. Images of text, the typical problems that they can cause, and headings and labels. Link purpose in context. So the W3C describes this as the purpose of each link can be determined from the link text alone or from the link text together with its programmatically determined link context, except where the purpose of the link would be ambiguous to users in general. Now, this is an extension to the original WCAG WCAG1 requirement where links must have made sense when read out of context. So you could have no find out more or read here links, as they would not make sense when read out of context. Typically, there are multiple find out more links on a web page, and it would be impossible to distinguish them. That has been relaxed for this success criteria, and as you can see, it now allows links to make sense when taken into the context of their programmatically determined link context, and that covers their preceding paragraph, the preceding heading, and so on, as we'll have a look at. So why is link purpose in context important? Screen reader users in particular often can review links in isolation, so out of context of the main page. The screenshot on the right here is a screenshot using the JAWS screen reader. The JAWS screen reader allows the user to extract a list of links on the page and view them in this separate dialog box, and they all just use the link text from the page, so a user cannot see what the surrounding text is. And whilst that's a very quick way of browsing all the links on a page, it often causes some issues because the links may not make sense. Users will not want to go and investigate lots of additional text to understand the meaning of a link. So it may be if they do encounter a find out more link, they may jump to that find out more link, and they may just opt to read the preceding heading, the heading immediately above that find out more link, to see if that adds sufficient context for them. Or they might read the preceding paragraph, which is just one keystroke using a screen reader. So it's important mainly for screen reader users to create links that have the purpose of the link embedded within the text. Now, how can you test this? You need to review all the links on the page, and if you read them in the context of their same paragraph, if they appear next to some adjacent text or a preceding heading, they should make sense when just taking those factors into account. It's good practice to avoid links like read more with no additional text. However, we can use links like read more providing they are under a descriptive heading. If you are using the JAWS screen reader, you can use the JAWS key modifier plus F7 to display a list of all the links on a page, as shown in the screenshot opposite. You can then review this to see if all those links make sense out of context. So the requirements really are ensure that you are not using any read more links. If you are using them, do they have a preceding descriptive heading? So this example on the right where we have find out more and above it is a prepayment plans. So a user would read the find out more link, they'd press a command, in this case Shift and H with JAWS to read the preceding heading. That would read out prepayment plans, and the user would then have a good idea that this link find out more would take them to a page to read more about prepayment plans. It's good practice to actually vocalize and read out loud each link on a page. If it makes sense from just reading the link text then it should be fine for screen reader users. Let's just have a look at the example highlighted then. So on the Eon homepage, if we have a scroll around, then we can see as we go down, we've got to find out more link here, but actually that prepayment plans, as I can highlight using the toolbar, is actually a heading. So that is programmatically determined context for this link, and that is fine. Again, here again with help and support, that's going to be help and support relating to that heading, and that goes for all of the links on this page. So here is some important information. Now if I just zoom in case that's not quite clear. That link may not make sense out of context, but it would make sense when read in the context of get a quote now, or at least it might do. So here is some important information. I would expect that to take me to information about getting a quote now. If we follow that just to have a look. So that does actually take me to a page with some key information, in fact a checklist on how to compare quotes. So that would suffice in this case. However, it's still good practice to have slightly more usual or sensible text for this link. So what is this important information on? Here's some important information, or here is a comparison checklist for you to read, would be slightly better. However, it is sufficient to pass the success criteria as it is. Okay, moving on to images of text. So images of text. W3 describes this as if the technologies being used can achieve the visual presentation, text is used to convey information rather than images of text, except for the following circumstances, where images of text can be customized and a particular presentation of text is essential. It's worth noting that logos are also exempt from this success criteria. So why is this important? Well, unlike plain text or CSS style text, users cannot easily customize images of text. They cannot increase the text size, they cannot change the colors, and screen reader users cannot read images of text unless they have sufficient alternative text provided for them, which requires more work for content writers and editors. Images also require more bandwidth. That's not an accessibility issue, but it is something to bear in mind. So here on the right hand side we've got an example of image of text. Now we look at this in a separate webinar on images, but the issue here is that the information within this image, up to 7% direct debit discount, is not available any other way. So if a user cannot see that image, that information is not stored in another way on the page. So users who cannot perceive visually will miss out on that information. So how can we test then for images of text? Well, there's several ways to include images. There's inline images, which are typically used for information-rich images, or there are CSS background images, which are often used for cosmetic images. Now, if we have a look at the Eon site, again, we can find the image we've just been looking at. And this is up to 7% direct debit discount. Now, from previous testing, I know that that is a CSS background image. If I go to images in the web accessibility toolbar and go to remove CSS images, that removes that image and all of that information is gone. This is the view that a screen reader user would have without that information in the image. They would just have get an energy quote. They would not be told anything about the discount for direct debit. So that's one way of including an image in a page, the inline, the CSS method of including images. There are also other methods of including images. So including the search icon is included as a standard image, as is the Eon image, which is actually acting as a link back to the home page. So where there are images of text, it's important that they are included as an inline image where at least alt text can be provided, but ideally they would be removed and replaced with CSS style text. As you can see, if I zoom in on the page, if I zoom in a lot, we begin to see the blurriness around the edge of this text, whereas the other text on the page retains its clarity and is crystal clear. The more you zoom in, and some users will zoom in up to this much or even more to read text, it loses less quality. And that's because there's only a certain amount of information within that image. It cannot be smoothed out by the font smoothing engine in a browser, unlike the rest of the text, which can. So there's a few different use cases of why images of text can cause problems for users. Now, some of the methods of detecting them then. Text on a page, as we can see, you can drag and select over it. That's a key attribute of text. You can drag it, you can copy it, you can paste it into a Word document and enlarge it. And you can also enlarge text within the page. So simply dragging over text will tell you if that's text or not. Here I can see the cursor doesn't even change on that image of text. I cannot select that text individually. I can only select the whole image. So it's impossible to select just that text, and that tells me that's an image of text. That's the easiest and quickest way of checking images of text on a page. So the requirements for fixing them, instead of using images of text, use plain text and style it with CSS to appear the same as it would do within the image. You can use CSS to lay text over images. As long as you ensure good contrast, there is no problem with that. CSS style text over the top of an image is absolutely fine. And you can really customize CSS style text. You can add text effects like drop shadows, you can change the case, all sorts of things. And the best part is it is customizable by users and is very readable. Just to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this webinar, that logo types are exempt from this success criteria, and so you can still implement them as images, particularly in the case of the site logo here, the Eon logo, obviously a very customized bit of text, which would be very difficult to achieve using CSS anyway. So using inline images for that is fine. Okay, on to the last success criteria, we have 2.4.6 headings and labels. This is very briefly described. Headings and labels should describe their topic or purpose. That is the W3C description of that success criteria. So why are headings and labels important? Well, all users will benefit from well-labeled and headed content. Sighted users use it for skim reading. Screen reader users navigate in a similar way by jumping along using headings to find the content that's really important to them, and then they start arrowing through content in a more granular way. Headings also have the benefit of having an SEO impact. Well-marked headings can have a positive impact on SEO. So how can we test for sensible headings and labels? Well, it requires a visual check of pages. Visually look at headings and labels and ask yourself, does that make sense? Is it concise? Is it descriptive? Could it be phrased any better? So check they're concise and they're descriptive. Check that form fields are descriptive as well. Form fields in particular should tell the user just what they need to put into that field. They may need to include a description of what format is expected, but at the very least they should describe the information such as account number or postcode as shown on the right hand side. So let's have a look at just a couple of examples then. So here we have some good examples on the For Your Business page of headings that are front-loaded with important information. By front-loaded, I mean examples like this: fixed tariffs for small to medium businesses, or flexible plans for large businesses. The key information, fixed tariffs, flexible plans, is right at the front of the heading. So a screen reader user skimming through the headings would just be able to read the very first few words and get a good idea about what the rest of the heading is about. So that's a really good example of a heading. If we go back, there are other areas within the site where headings perhaps aren't as well marked up, well described. So see if you could pay less. That might be better written as pay less, see here for more information, or pay less, see how. Similarly, for inside our solar collaboration, see inside now would be more useful, and it would front load the heading with the key information, allowing screen reader users and sighted users as well to skim using those headings more effectively. Moving on to the examples of labels we've just looked at in the preceding screenshot, we've got these labels here for creating an account or logging in. So the labels just ask for the account number and the postcode. So they are well labeled. I know exactly what information I need to put into each one. I can see as well there's an asterisk in each label, and the legend up here tells me an asterisk indicates a required field. So all of the key information is made available for me there. So really that's the key part about providing descriptive labels. Ensure that the user can read the label and they know what information to put in. We will look at labels more in a separate forms webinar, but at the very minimum they should have a sensible and descriptive field label. So the requirements for headings labels, as we've just seen, you should front load headings by putting key information right at the very front of the heading. They should be concise, so do not use an entire sentence or paragraph as a heading. Instead, try and keep it to a very brief sentence. And ensure labels are descriptive of the fields they relate to. They should be unique as well on a page, so if you have multiple similar fields, they should have unique labels for them. And it may be the case that some labels require meta information, such as if a field is required, or the format of data, such as a date of birth. Is it a 4-digit year or 2-digit year? You can include that information in the label to help people complete the field effectively. Okay, that is a quick session on the content side of web accessibility and some of the key considerations. If you do have any questions or feedback, please contact your line manager who can pass queries on to us, and then we can get back in due course. Thank you.